Hi lovelies, my name is Ikemji, and if you're new to this channel, you're highly welcome, and to my returning subscribers, a very big thank you to you all. So in today's tutorial, I'll be learning how to make this beautiful bustier blouse with 3-layer sleeves. So if you're finding it difficult to make this dress, I'm sure you'll be very interested in watching to the end of this video. So let's get started. So to get started, here are the materials needed: my tape and scissors, my ruler, chalk, the wording which I'll be using for my padding, and then I also have my 2 yards of Ankara fabric, as well as my elastic and the measurements that I'll be using to cut this dress. So I've simply gone ahead to fold my material into 2 and also drafted the lines I'll be working with. So here is my chest line, that's the beginning point is my chest line, and the other next line is actually my chest line. So remember that this is actually an off-shoulder dress, so you actually need to remove something. So I'll be removing around 6.5, which is going to be my starting line. So the next line I'll then be working with is actually my chest line, which is 8 inch. That is my bust divided by 6 plus 1.5 will give me my chest line. And then my bust point line is going to be 11, that's what I'm working with, and my under bust is actually 14 inches, and then the top of this length is actually 18 inch, and I'll be adding 1 inch for my sewing allowance. So what I'm simply going to be doing now is to impute my nipple to nipple measurement, which is actually 7 divided by 2. We have 3.5 plus ½ inch, making it 4. So I'm just going to mark that right there and connect it all through the line, just as you see me do in this video. So this is just me actually connecting it throughout. So remember that this is our starting line, so I'll just go ahead now and cut out the excesses that is up there so that it doesn't confuse us while we are cutting. So what I'm simply going to do next is that at the under bust line, because this is the bust line, so at the under bust line I'm going to go in by ½ inch at the center front, and I'm going to replicate that at the waistline as ½ inch as well. And then at the side front I'm going to go in by 1.5, although this actually differs according to bust. Some person's own can be 2, so I'm going to just replicate that 1.5 at the waistline, and I'm just going to connect that with a ruler, just as you see me do in this video. So after connecting it now, next you're going to do at the bust line, which is this, I'm going to come down by 1 inch and also go up by 1 inch as well. The reason I'm doing this is actually give my bust a curved shape, you get, so it doesn't become pointed at that bust point. So I'm just going to connect this point to that end with a curved ruler, or you can use your free hand, just the way I'm doing in this video. So I'm just going to connect the other side as well. So after doing that, now at the upper part, which is above the chest region, that is where your neckline is going to be, I'm going to also create a dart. I'm going to go in by 1 inch, and at the side front I'm going to go in by 1 inch as well. This that I'm actually doing there is just to create a dart that I'm going to connect to these very points at the other side as well, just the way you can see that point there. So I'm just going to use my ruler and connect it with a slant line, just as you see me do in this video, and this is exactly what we are going to have. So next I'm going to be doing now is to be adding my horizontal measurements, starting from my bust, and my bust is actually 36 divided by 4. I'm going to have 9, so I'm just going to mark that right there, plus my allowance, which is actually 2.5, 1 inch for my joining allowance at that bust region, and then 1.5 for my normal sewing allowance, making it 2.5. So I'm just going to mark that right there as you see me do so. So after doing that, then I'm just going to take my measurement for my waist, which is actually 30 divided by 4. I'm going to have 7.5. So I'm going to mark 7.5, just as you see me do in this video. So I just marked that there, and I'm going to be adding my dart intake. Remember that these points we actually took here is that, which is equivalent to 2 inches, just as you can see. So I'm going to replace that 2 inches right there and mark it, and then I'm going to be adding my 2.5 inch allowance that I added at the upper part, 1 inch for my joining allowance and 1.5 for my sewing allowance, which is what, 2.5. So I'm just going to mark that right there. So this is what we're going to have. So you need to listen carefully because this part is very important. So at the upper region now, which is the neckline, I'm going to be imputing the horizontal measurements, and the measurement that we need here is actually the strap to strap measurement. That is what you can see in this picture, and using a black arrow to actually indicate. And the reason we need our strap to strap measurement is basically because this is where I want my elastic to begin from. So once you measure it, some person's own can be 9, some can be 10, but I'm going to be working with 10 here based on my measurement. So when you divide it by 2, you are going to have 5. So I'm just going to mark that 5 right there. And if you can check, if you remember, this our dart we actually took here, if you measure it, you're going to be having what, 2 inches, because we took 1 inch here and 1 inch there, making it 2 inches. So we're going to replace that 2 inches at that very other side, since this part was actually marked 5. So I'm just going to replace that 2 inches at this point, and I will mark it. So after that, now I'm going to add 1 inch allowance for my joining at that intake, and also the joining for my sleeve. So I'm just going to connect that to my chest line. So next I'm going to simply do is to replicate this my bust measurement on my chest line, and I'll go ahead and connect everything together, and this is basically what I'm going to have after it. So next I'm going to do is to also connect this point to the chest line, which will create my armhole. So from the style given, this is actually a sweetheart's neck line. So what I'm simply going to do now is I'm going to create a depth for my sweetheart, and remember that this is an off shoulder and we took away 6.5. so I'm going to make my sweetheart to actually come down around 8.5 because I really want it to be prominent. So I'm just going to connect that with this with a curved line. You can use your free hand, you can use your curved hand ruler, whichever one is suitable, you can actually do it. So I've just gone ahead to actually connect those 2 lines points together, and I will simply go ahead and cut out what I'll be needing for this tutorial. So after that, this is basically what you're going to have. So next I'm going to do now is to notch all those points, which is at the bust point and also at the under bust. The reason I'm actually notching this, it will be very helpful for all beginners, so that when you are joining these two together, you will find it very easy at locating those points and ensuring they are all pointed together. So right now I've also gone ahead to actually pad my dress. So if you want to actually know how to pad this dress the way I've done, I also have a video that I've actually linked to this video. I provided the link at the description there. So just locate the link at the description below so that you can actually learn how to actually pad this dress very easy and equally sew it. So next I'll be doing now is to actually cut the back, and I've gone ahead to fold my fabric into 2 and also drafted the lines that I'll be needing for this tutorial. So I went ahead to draft out the same lines I drafted at the front, but the only difference is the zip allowance, which I actually gave there, as you can see. So there's a zip allowance of 1.5 inches, and the other things here are actually the same. So next I'll be doing now is to actually take my horizontal measurements. Basically, remember that this is actually the starting line first, which is 6.5. My chest line is 8. Bust is actually 13, even though it's not needed. My under bust is 14, and then the length of the dress is 18 plus my 1 inch sewing allowance. So next I'm going to be doing is to impute my horizontal measurements, starting from my strap to strap measurements, which I've already explained at the front part. So my strap to strap is 10 divided by 2, I have 5 plus half inches, which is 5.5, and I'll mark that there. So this is actually my chest line, and then on my bust line I have 36 as my bust, divided by 4, I'm going to have 9 inches. So I'm just going to mark that right there, as you can see, plus my 1.5 inches for my sewing allowance. Then I'll equally mark that as well. So you can see, because of beginners, that I just had to draft out all this line, but under bust is not required for the back. So which brings me down to my waistline, which is actually 30 divided by 4. I'm going to have 7.5 plus 2.5 sewing allowance. 1 inch will be for my dart, because you're going to be taking your dart at the back, and then 1.5 inch for your normal sewing allowance, making it 2.5. That's why I marked it right there. So I will simply go ahead now and connect those lines together, and I'll go ahead to replicate my bust measurement at my chest line and equally connect it for that. So next I'll be doing now is to also go ahead and join that point to my chest line for my armhole. And this is basically what you're going to have. So for my neck now, which is for the back, I don't want my neck for the back to be all that straight. I want to kind of give it a beautiful look, whether slanted or curvy or any form. So I'm just going to go down a bit. Remember that starting line is actually 6.5, so I went down a bit around 8 inch to create that mark there. So I'm just going to connect this point to this other point at my armhole side. I'm just going to connect it. Just watch, you're going to see where I'm going to connect it from to that other point now. So just the way I did, you're going to exactly do it before you can go ahead and cut out what you'll be needing for this tutorial. I hope I explained it to the best. So you go ahead now and split that part open. So after cutting the back, next I went ahead to do is to cut the lining for each of them and align them together properly. So as you can see, this one here is for the front, and also this is for the back. I'm also gonna head to cut two, and I will take it to the machine and sew. So this is basically what you're going to have after joining your fabric together with your lining. And this is the back. As you can see, I've gone ahead to actually done the darts, and this is for the other side. So next I'm going to be doing now is to actually cut my sleeve. And for you to do that, we needing a very big fabric because this is actually a puff sleeve. So I've gone ahead to fold my fabric into 4 for both hands. So this is 1 and this is 2. So I've actually gone ahead to fold it. The next I'm going to be doing is to actually fold this down, because here I'm going to be running my elastic. So after folding it, then I can now take in my measurement, and the measurement I'm going to be working with for my sleeve is actually 27 plus my 1 inch for my folding at the extreme. So remember that this is actually a puff sleeve, like I said. So what I simply need to do, I need a material that is very, very white to give me that puffiness. So here I'm working with 15.5, although you can actually use something more or a bit less just in order to give you that puffiness. So next I'm going to be doing now is to actually get the back or the front, any one of them, just to get the armhole placed on the material at this edge side. So as you can see now, I'm just going to place it on my sleeve fabric so that I can go ahead to cut out that shape of armhole that I'll be needing, so that it can be the same with that of the blouse. So I'm just going to cut that, and after that, now this is basically what you're going to have. So you just go ahead and fold this part when you open up the sleeve, and then sew it in order to run your elastic inside. So I'll be running an elastic here, an elastic at this side, and as well at this other part. So I'll be running 3 elastics. So the elastic I'll be needing at the shoulder, what you need to do here is to measure your shoulder and divide it by 2. So my shoulder is actually 16, so I'm going to divide it by 2, and I will have 8. And is that 8 I'm going to be inserting there, although I'm going to be using safety pin in order to pass through there. So next I'm going to be doing to measure my elbow length, and what I'll be working with is 12. So I'm going to mark this 12 all through the dress, that's the sleeve. Now I'm just going to mark that all through. So next I'm going to be doing is to mark the point where the next elastic is going to be, which is going to be at the wrist side, because somewhere around the wrist, that's that area, because the dress is going to flay at that other region. So I'm just going to be marking the next place. So I'm going to be placing the elastic at 20 inch, and I'm just going to mark that all through and connect it. And this is basically what you're going to have. As you can see, I've just done this for one part of the sleeve, so I'll go ahead and do it for the other side of this particular sleeve, and also go ahead to replicate it for the other sleeve, and that will be done. So as you can see now, I have already done that, and what I need to do is to actually put my elastic for the middle part. And for you to do that, you are to measure your round armhole, which is actually 12. So I'm going to be cutting 12 at this elastic, and I'm just going to place that at this point here, and I'm going to stretch them while sewing it in order to reach to the other end of my sewing machine. And I'm going to also do that for my wrist. I'm going to measure my wrist, which is actually 8. So I'll go ahead and cut out 8, although I'm going to be cutting this elastic 2 for both sleeve. So once I cut that 8, I'm going to equally do the same thing by stretching it out while sewing so it can reach the other end. And I will go ahead and replicate this process in my other sleeve. So this is basically what's going to look like after attaching your elastic to the sleeve, and this is the back. So next I'm going to be doing, now as you can see, I've gone ahead to join my both back together and actually put my zip. So I'm just going to take my front now and place directly on top of my back so that I can go ahead and put the sleeve. So while putting the sleeve, you ensure that you place it appropriately, and then let the armhole of your sleeve be in line with the armhole of the top. Just as you can see, I'm doing directly in this video, and you're going to do that for the back as well. So simply doing that, I went ahead to use pin to actually secure them down before taking it to the machine to sew. So when you are doing that, just do that carefully so that everything can align together, and then take it to the machine and sew, and equally replicate this process to the other part of the sleeve. And this is basically what you're going to have. As you can see, I've stitched it with my machine, and this is basically the back of it, and this is what it looks like. So right now, as you can see, next I'm going to be doing now is to actually stitch it from the sleeve down to this very point, and I've equally gone ahead to actually mark my 1.5-inch sewing allowance, which you can see there. So I'll just make sure that my dresses are well aligned, and I'm going to use pin to actually secure it at both sides and down to the sleeve before I can then take it to the machine to sew. So basically, I'm just doing this carefully so that everything can align with each other, both the front and back, and as well as the sleeve. So this is basically what you are going to have. This is the front, this is what it looks like, this is the sleeve. Everything is coming out so beautiful and very okay. So if you find this video very helpful and very interesting, please do like, share, subscribe, turn the notification bell to get notified anytime I upload a new video in this channel. Thank you, and see you in my next video. Bye.